Lilibet has always wanted to get a cat, but her mom wouldn't allow her to get one. Once, she found a kitten on the street and brought it home. She knew her mom would make her take it to the shelter, so she decided to hide it. Once, Lilibet's mom walked into the room and realized there was a cat living in her daughter's room. How did she understand it? There is no trace of a cat at the first sight, but look, the bed sheets are covered in white cat hairs. Amanda works at a gas station in a city suburb. It's so calm and quiet there that one day she only had 3 customers. The first one got something to drink, the second one got some chocolate bars, and the third one just paid for gas. One of them was a criminal, and Amanda reported him to the police. Who is the criminal, and how did she understand it? The second man paid with a $15 bill. Such a bill doesn't exist, which means he'd been printing money. John was on the expedition to the North Pole. One day, he woke up in a frozen cave. He didn't remember what had happened, but he had to get out fast. There were 3 doors. Behind the first one, there was a room filled with poisonous gas. Behind the second one, there was a huge lake. Behind the third one, there were 3 hungry polar bears. Which door should he choose to stay safe? He should pick the second door. He's on the North Pole, it's cold, and the lake must be frozen, so he doesn't have to swim to cross the lake. Mrs. Adams came back home. She had 3 teenagers, and all of them happened to be grounded at the same time. She noticed that the car was parked differently outside, so she figured that one of the teens drove somewhere. She asked who had taken the car, but no one admitted. Atlas said that he had spent the whole day outside gardening and just returned home a few moments ago. Chloe said that she had spent the day in her bedroom studying. Emilia said that she had been reading and exercising. Who lied? Of course, it's Atlas. Look at the way he's dressed. Who spends the day in the garden wearing a tuxedo? More like he just came back from a date. Mr. and Mrs. Olson are a married couple living in a house with 4 housemates. One day, Mr. Olson came back from work and found Mrs. Olson unconscious. Detective Callum arrived to investigate the case, and the 4 housemates were the main suspects. Ayla said that she had spent the last 2 hours in the kitchen. Ben said that he had been painting in his room all day. Chloe said that she had been swimming in the pool for at least 3 hours. Dean said that he had been reading a book in the garden. The detective asked all of them to show their hands and identify the liar. Who is the liar? It's Cleo. If she had spent 3 hours in the pool, her fingers would have been wrinkled, but they're perfectly fine, so she must have lied. Okay, now it's time to challenge your attention. Each time I'll show you 2 photos and you have to tell me which person isn't being smart in the situation. Here's the first set. Damon and Carter are both stay-at-home husbands doing house chores. Which one of them isn't smart? That's the guy on the right. He's watering the flowers, but there's no need to do it because it's pouring outside. Okay, here's another pair. On the left, there is Celeste. She's grilling the meat for a family barbecue. On the right, there's Gianna, who's vacuuming the house while listening to music. Who is not smart at all? It's Celeste. There's a gallon of gas standing right under the grill. It's very dangerous. The gas is flammable. And the last one. Here are 2 families posing for pictures. Which family isn't being wise? It's this family right here. Did you notice there's a huge branch cracking right over them? Caleb just got a big sum of cash from the bank. He was walking past a grocery store when he suddenly felt bad and fell unconscious. A young girl, Hannah, was passing by, so she reached out to help him and called the ambulance. Soon the man came back to his senses. He reached out to check the money, but it wasn't there. Someone stole the money during all the fuss. The police had 3 suspects: Hannah and 2 other pedestrians that walked past them. Who is the thief? Look, there are 2 types of footprints leading to Caleb. One pair belongs to him and the other one belongs to Hannah. But there's also another pair, a pair of footprints with a little hole next to it, which must be the print from a stick. So the thief must be a person walking with a stick, and it's this man. Mrs. York is a rich lady with a large collection of jewelry and expensive tea sets. Once, her daughter-in-law Haven came to visit for a week. On the 3rd day, Mrs. York noticed that a silver cup from her most expensive tea set had disappeared. She said Haven was a thief and called the police. She showed them her collection and the shelf, but the police didn't believe Mrs. York.
No.
Why? The spot where the cup was supposed to stand was just as dusty as the rest of the shelf. It means that nothing had been standing there for a long time. A famous writer was living alone on a farm far away from the city and never went outside. The only people she ever saw were her cook, her gardener, and a cleaning man. One day before breakfast, the cleaning man found the writer in a bad health condition and called the ambulance. The doctor concluded that the writer was poisoned. The cook said that he had been busy looking for new recipes. The gardener said that he was outside doing his job. The cleaning man said he had just came to start the job when he found the writer. Who poisoned the writer? It must be the cook. It happened right before breakfast, but he wasn't cooking anything. He knew that no one would need to eat because she was the reason it happened. Naya was on vacation, and her parents needed some old books she had for their yard sale. They had spare keys, so they called Naya and asked her if they could go to her apartment and get them. Naya agreed, and that's what her parents did. When they walked into her apartment, there was a young man there. He introduced himself and told them that he was Naya's friend and that he was coming here to water her plants. Naya's parents didn't believe him and called the police, reporting a robbery. Why? Look around. There's not a single plant in Naya's apartment. It's a very poor excuse. Okay, let's relax a bit and train your eyes. I'll show you some photos. In each photo, there are numbers from 1 to 9 hidden except for 1. Your task is to find all numbers and identify which one is missing. Here's the first one. Which number from 1 to 9 isn't in the photo? Correct. There is no number 4. Okay, now something a bit harder. A new photo, but the task is the same. Which number is missing? Now, there is no number 9. Let's do a couple more. Here it is. What do you say? This time, it's number 6 that's missing. The task is getting harder, and numbers aren't so easy to find anymore. But I believe in you, so go ahead. What do you say this time? There's no number 2. That's right. Okay, the last one of these. Concentrate and give me the right answer. Yes, number 8 isn't there. Great job!
A mad scientist caught Larry and locked him in a small room. There were no windows, and the door was locked. But there was a note on the table. It was from the scientist. JFMAM ... JASOND. Guess the missing letter, and I'll set you free. "10 minutes later, Larry was already running away from the strange place. He managed to figure out that the missing letter was J. Those were the first letters of the months of the year, from January to December. And the 6th letter, J, stood for June. There are 2 villages next to each other. People who always tell the truth live in one of them. Liars live in the other. The inhabitants of the villages often visit each other. You're in one of the villages, but you don't know which one it is. What question should you ask a passerby to find out where you are? Ask them, "Are you a guest here?" If they answer yes, you're in the village of liars. If they say no, you're in the village where honest people live. Brian came to his senses on the floor in his living room. He was unharmed, but couldn't remember a thing. Suddenly, 2 young women entered the house. They looked exactly the same. When they found out what had happened, each of them started to claim that Brian was her husband. Can you help the guy figure out which of the women is his real wife? It's the woman on the left. She has a tattoo on the same arm as the girl in the wedding photo. Megan was 21 on her last birthday, but she's going to be 23 on her next one. How is it possible? It's Megan's 22nd birthday today. Sandra's boyfriend went on a business trip to New York. Soon, the girl got a weird text message from him. It looked like this: NHAPPY. What did Sandra's boyfriend want to say? The message means, "Unhappy without you." Now how about solving this rebus puzzle? NEA, friended. What can it mean? It's a friend in need. And one more for you. Man, bored. It's man overboard. Great job. Now let's see how attentive you are. Look at this image. Who's not from Earth? Must be the guy on the right. The guy on the left is only wearing a Halloween costume. Look at his hazel eyes. They seem to be absolutely human. And now look at the eyes of the guy on the right. Ugh, creepy. How about this image? Can you spot anyone who doesn't look like us? Earthlings? It's the lady on the left. Have you noticed a couple of extra eyes hiding in her hair? These drivers are about to take part in a race. Which of them is from another planet? That driver over there. He seems to be leaving a trail of slime behind him. Okay, you have a sharp eye. But is it sharp enough to crack the following riddles? A rabbit is hiding somewhere among these mushrooms. Can you spot it? It chose one of the largest mushrooms to hide behind. At first sight, there's nothing unusual here. But what if you examine the picture more attentively? Right, no one uses a soccer ball to play basketball. Mark bought a new keyboard, but the seller fooled the guy and gave him a fake one. Can you find the proof? The keyboard has 2 8s, but no 9s. A dog runs away from its master and is now hiding somewhere among these bowls. Help the worried owner find its pooch. Gotcha! Similar, but not the same. How good are you at math? Let's figure it out. How much will a 50-degree angle measure if you look at it through a microscope that magnifies 5 times? The angle won't change. It'll still be 50 degrees. A man came to a fruit market to sell watermelons. After he sold half of them and half of a watermelon, he saw he had 1 watermelon left. How many watermelons did he bring to the market? He came there with 3 watermelons. There are 100 books on a shelf. To count off 10 of them, you'll need 10 seconds. How much time will you spend counting off 70 books? It'll take you 30 seconds. You'll need this time to count off 30 books, and the rest will make 70. Liza worked as a nurse in a hospital. One day she came to make injections. After these injections, it was prohibited to get up. Liza warned the patients and left. But when she came back, she understood that one of the patients had actually got up while she'd been away. Who was it? And how did she figure it out? It's the guy in the middle. There was a plate with some cookies near his bed. But now, the same plate, but empty, is on the table in the corner. At around 7 p.m., Melissa was walking in the park. Suddenly, she saw a guy lying on the ground. His bike was nearby, in the bushes. Melissa helped him to sit up, and he told her, "I was cycling through the park when someone threw a stone at me. I fell down and blacked out." Melissa had 4 suspects. Hannah said she'd been on a morning run and hadn't seen anything. Ryan said he'd taken his dog for a walk, and they had been in another part of the park. And Michael and Laura said they'd come to have a picnic and had been busy with food. Who is lying? Hannah, it's evening. How could she have her morning run? Detective Robbins was walking along the street when he heard the sound of glass shattering. He saw a large crowd gathering near the broken window of a jewelry store. The detective ran up to the store owner. "Has anything been stolen?" The man said he hadn't understood yet. Suddenly, Robbins rushed away. Why? The store window was broken to distract passersby. Meanwhile, this guy stole a wallet from the man in a suit. At first, the wallet was in the man's pocket. Now, the thief is rushing away, the wallet in his hand. 2 cars, red and black, are moving along the same highway. The red car is traveling at a speed that's twice higher than that of the black car. They both started at the same time, and still, after some time on the road, the 2 cars come across each other. How is it possible? The cars were moving toward each other. Mark was going to an important business meeting, and he was driving quite fast. Unfortunately, the man got into a car accident. Both he and the other driver were okay, but the cars were badly damaged. Mark called the police. When they arrived, Mark explained the situation. "I was driving fast, but I wasn't breaking any rules. Suddenly, a car pulled out in front of me. I didn't have enough time to brake." The other driver exclaimed, "It's your fault! I was driving slowly, talking to my wife about our weekend plans, and then you appeared out of nowhere." The police officers immediately understood who was responsible for the accident. And you? It was the other driver. He was alone in his car. It means he was talking to his wife on the phone, which is illegal. Dylan was trapped in a basement. The only thing he found inside was a note and a pen. Find out how to get 200 out of 188 using just one line, and you'll be free. 5 minutes later, the door opened automatically, and Dylan was free. What did he do? He drew the line to divide 188 horizontally. This way, he got 100 and 100. One afternoon, all cash was stolen from a small cafe on the beach. The police had 4 suspects. All of them claimed they hadn't been to the cafe in the past hour. Look at them attentively and try to figure out who's the thief. It's the guy with a cocktail in his hand. He definitely bought it in the cafe since it's the only one on the beach. But then, why did he lie about not visiting the place?
Sarah accidentally pulled a lever in a science lab and set free a group of mutant zombies. The 4 humans left in the lab needed to escape before the zombies caught up. To do so, they needed to cross an old rope bridge hanging over a massive gorge. According to the professor's calculations, the zombies would catch up with the lab team in 17 minutes. They needed to get everyone across the bridge before that. Sarah was the fastest one in the group. She could cross the bridge in 1 minute. The lab assistant, Dawn, could cross it in 2 minutes. But the janitor and the professor were way slower. The first needed 5 minutes, and the second needed 10 minutes to get to the other side. They also only had 1 lantern left. How could they arrive at the other side safely if the bridge could only hold 2 people at a time, and each group needed to carry the lantern to illuminate the way? Here's how it works. Sarah and Dawn cross the bridge first, carrying the lantern. It takes them 2 minutes. Sarah, the quickest, runs back with the lantern. Then, the professor and the janitor cross the bridge together. It takes them 10 minutes. In total, it takes 13 minutes. Dawn grabs the lantern from them and dashes across the bridge to help Sarah get across. With 2 minutes left on the clock, Sarah and Dawn get safely to the other side, just in time to cut the rope and save their lives. Helena finally got herself a new guitar. She wanted to start playing it right away, but she had to go to school. She locked the instrument in her room and left. When she got home that evening, the guitar was gone. She knew it must have been one of her family members, as they were always playing pranks on each other. So she questioned each of them. Helena's mother said she hadn't even seen the guitar the girl had bought. Her dad said he'd seen it when he'd passed by Helena's room, but swore he hadn't done anything to it. Her brother said he hadn't gone upstairs the whole day, so he hadn't seen the guitar either. Helena solved the mystery right away. Can you figure it out? Her dad is lying. He said he'd seen the guitar when passing by her room, but that would be impossible. Helena locked the door on the way out. John, Carl, and Ben are sitting on a park bench. One of them arranged to meet his 2 sisters. He promised them he would take them on a stroll in the park. Can you tell which guy it is? It's Ben. Look at his wrist. He's wearing 2 bracelets, probably made by his younger sisters. Josh was walking in a forest at night and came across an old castle. He was curious, so he found a way to sneak in and started walking down a corridor. Pretty soon, he met 3 cloaked figures. When Josh asked them who they were, they said they were 2 werewolves and 1 vampire. The trio told Josh that he had made a bad choice coming inside the castle. They said they wouldn't leave him unless Josh outsmarted them. Josh had to guess who the vampire was. According to the rules, he was only allowed to ask each of them the same question, and the question couldn't be, "Are you a vampire?" After a few minutes of thinking, Josh asked, "What's your eye color?" He guessed who the vampire was and was allowed to leave the castle. Why did he ask that? And how did that question help him? Vampires don't reflect in mirrors, and they don't show up in photos. The vampire probably wouldn't know their eye color. One afternoon, 4 friends met up for coffee. Someone asked them how old they were, and they answered with a riddle. They said Mia was 3 times older than Anna, but 3 years ago, Anna was younger than Claudia is now, and Olivia is twice as old as Anna. So, can you put the girls in order according to their age? The correct order is Mia, Olivia, Anna, and Claudia. Mary's birthday was coming up, and she decided to treat herself to a relaxing day at the spa. During the massage, Mary dozed off. When she woke up, the money was missing from her purse. There were 3 suspects. The cashier, Erica, claimed that she'd been having lunch at the back. Catherine, the masseuse, said, "I went to the back of the store to get some extra oil." Monica, a customer, said she hadn't seen anything and had just been waiting for her turn. What do you say, Sherlock? Who did it? The culprit is Catherine, the masseuse. She must have waited for Mary to fall asleep and then took her things. Look at the stash of money hidden behind the oils. Susanna was walking down the street when she saw a small dog. It looked as if the dog had just run away, so she picked it up and started searching for its owner. She walked into an office building. There were 3 people there. Susanna knew immediately who the dog's owner was. How did she figure it out? Look at the guy in the middle. He's sitting on a dog's leash. You've just come back from a long trip. You had to get a new suitcase to store all the things you bought. But after arriving home, you realize you've forgotten the code you need to open the suitcase. Luckily, you left yourself a note on your cell phone that can help you decipher the code on the lock. 682. 1 digit is correct and in the right place. 614. 1 digit is correct, but in the wrong place. 206. 2 digits are correct, but in the wrong place. 768. All digits are wrong. 380. 1 digit is right, but in the wrong place. What's the 3-digit code? (042). One morning, Detective Smith arrived at the jail where 3 men had escaped from their cells. The prisoners could neither see nor talk to each other. But they managed to organize their escape together. They visited the same shower room, but only one person was allowed to come in at a time. How did they manage to communicate? They wrote messages to one another on the bathroom mirror, used the steam to read them, and planned their escape together. On a Sunday morning, 7 friends went to the mall. Esme, Evelyn and Elise grabbed a cup of coffee each, while Ava, Ella, and Emma decided to drink some refreshing soda. Can you figure out if Esther chose to drink coffee or soda? Esther is drinking coffee. The secret to figuring out the answer is in the girls' names. Esme, Evelyn, Elise, and Esther all have two-letter E's in their names. In the afternoon, 3 people visited Tessa's clothing store. These 3 people were the only customers she had that day. The first person bought a belt and a purse. The second person bought a dress. And the third customer got a hat. One of them was a criminal, and Tessa reported them to the police immediately. Who was the criminal, and how did Tessa know? The third person gave her a $1,000 bill, but such bills don't exist. At 11 a.m., Amy got a call from her boss, Tom. He was in distress because a very important document had disappeared from his office. It had been on the desk the evening before, but nowhere to be found in the morning. Amy immediately went there to question the employees. She soon had 3 suspects. Elijah said he had spent the previous evening in the movies. Mason took his girlfriend to dinner. And Evelyn visited an art gallery. It didn't take Amy long to understand who was lying. Can you figure it out? It was Elijah. Take a close look at his ticket. It isn't torn, which means he didn't really go to the movies.
You were walking through a forest when you saw a big lake. In the middle of the lake, you spotted 3 cages floating on the surface. Inside, there were 3 people. Adam's cage was blocked by a huge chunk of ice. Luke's cage was locked with a massive padlock. And on top of Helen's cage, there was a container with boiling water. You could help only one of them. Who should you pick? You should choose to help Luke. The ice blocking Adam's cage will melt sooner or later. The boiling water would evaporate, and Helen would be able to escape. But Luke won't get out of this cage on his own. After having had an argument with a powerful magician the night before, Mark woke up in a dark room. Luckily, his cell phone was still working. He switched on the flashlight and saw 3 doors. Apparently, the first one led to a sea swimming with sharks. The second led to a cave filled with sharp rocks and bats with giant claws. And the third led to a forest with brain-controlling zombie mosquitoes. Which door should Mark open to escape? The second door sounds like a pretty safe choice. Bats may look scary, but they won't attack you if you don't provoke them. Apparently, Mark didn't learn his lesson and argued with the same magician again. And, surprise, surprise, he got locked in a room with 3 doors. The only thing he saw there was this note. You have to pick the correct door, and I'll set you free. All the doors lead to freedom, but not all of them are safe. The first one is incredibly hot. You can get badly burned. The second door is electrified, and the third door is covered with acid that eats through everything but metal. Mark thought for a moment and chose one of the doors. Which one? Look, Mark is wearing sneakers with thick rubber soles. He can use his foot to open the second door. Thanks to his shoes, he won't get an electric shock. 2 identical vans were crossing the bridge when it collapsed. The cars fell into the water and started to sink. Luckily, the drivers were unharmed. But they had to figure out how to get to the surface really fast because the vans started to fill with water. One of the drivers began to push the closest door, and the other tried to open the side door. Who has a higher chance of survival? first driver won't be able to open the door because of the water pressure, but the side door in the second car is a sliding door. With some effort, the second driver will be able to open it and escape. You got lost in a forest. It's getting dark. Very soon, wild animals will start their hunt. There are 4 roads. You can choose from the north, south, west, and east. But the north path will take you to a supermassive black hole. The south road goes through a lake full of huge whale sharks. If you take the west road, you'll end up at the edge of a ginormous pit in the ground, which can't be crossed even with the help of a rope. And the east path will bring you to a sky-high mountain. It's impossible to climb over it. Which path should you opt for? You need to follow the south road. Whale sharks aren't dangerous to people, and they will let you swim across the lake without any problems. You are locked in a prison cell. You have been given some food and a bucket of water. That's enough for 3 days. You could potentially escape, since there are 3 doors leading out of the cell. But the first one opens to a wall of fire. The second leads to a cave where a polar bear and its cub live. And behind the third door, there's a lake with hungry crocodiles. Which door should you choose? The first door. The bear will try to protect the cub even if you offer it your food. Not everyone can swim in the lake swarming with crocodiles, so you should use your bucket to put out the fire with the water from the lake. At the same time, you can distract the crocodiles with your food. You got kidnapped and locked in a stone house. It doesn't have any doors, and it's impossible to break its walls. But there are 4 doors you can escape through. Behind the first door, it's extremely cold. If you choose to go there, you'll turn into a block of ice in a matter of seconds. The second door opens into a water tank with hungry sharks. Behind the third door, the sun shines so brightly that it burns everything that gets there. In the room behind the fourth door is filled with toxic gas that won't let you breathe. Is there a way to escape? Wait until the evening when the sun goes down and escape through the third door. One night, you find yourself stuck in an old, spooky castle. You hear someone chasing after you. You're running faster and faster, but suddenly, a dead end. Luckily, a bit later, you notice 3 doors in the wall. But behind each door, there are some horrifying creatures. The first door hides zombies. Werewolves are behind the second one. And if you open the third door, you'll come face to face with bloodthirsty vampires. Which door should you open to have a chance to survive? Escape through the second door. The moon is waxing at the moment, and werewolves transform only on the full moon. One day, Detective Larson received a call from his friend Melinda. She told him she had been out getting groceries, but when she came home, her husband Michael was on the floor, unconscious.
Oh no!
The detective had 3 suspects. The cook said he'd been in the kitchen all day. The security guard claimed he had spent all morning cleaning the swimming pool and the area around it. The maid told the detective that she'd been tidying the living room since early morning. Larson immediately understood who was behind the accident. How about you? It was the security guard. Cleaning swimming pools doesn't sound like something a security guard would be hired to do. Lisa and Olivia managed to escape from a sinking ship. Lisa was dragged away by a powerful current and woke up on an island. Olivia was still floating in a lifeboat, but she was extremely thirsty. Which of the 2 girls will survive longer? It will be Lisa. The water she has will keep her going a little bit longer. Olivia can't drink ocean water because the amount of salt in it is dangerous to people. Some weirdo caught you and offered to choose a place where you'd have to stay on your own for the following 3 weeks. If you managed to survive, He'd set you free. He gave you 3 options: a desert with several cacti growing around, a sunny field with flowers where you'll have a banana and a glass of water, and a beach under the stormy skies surrounded by sharp cliffs, with high waves crashing against the shore. Where will you have more chances to survive? In a desert, there's no water, and you won't last long. 1 banana and a glass of water won't help you to survive for 3 weeks. Your only choice is the beach. The sea will provide you with food. And since the weather is cloudy, you'll be able to drink rainwater.
Now, Foggy is a friendly ghost living in the attic of an old house. Every night, he goes for a refreshing walk around the house for 4 hours. Foggy doesn't like 1 month of the year because that month he gets to walk around way less than the previous months. What's the month and why? It's February. There are just 28 days and nights in February, and 29 on the luckiest years. So, fewer nights and less time for Foggy to walk around. Just a month ago, Autumn and her family moved into a new house. Everyone loved it, but Autumn was sure that the house was haunted. She doesn't know it yet, but our old friend Foggy is the ghost that lives in her attic. He is a friendly ghost, so once he left her a message written on a mirror. Autumn woke up and saw this. Can you help her read the message? It's a code. Autumn should ignore the numbers and only look at the letters. The note says, "Do not be afraid. I am Foggy. And who are you?" Right before Halloween, when everyone was dressed up and carefree, all the creatures flooded a little town trying to blend in. Detective Callum was on duty to identify all the imposters and keep an eye on them. He has a couple of leads, and your task is to help him find all the monsters. Deal? The first one we need to find is a vampire. The vampire lives in one of these 2 houses. Can you tell which one? Look, there is garlic hanging in this house. Vampires can't stand garlic, they prefer cilantro, so it cannot be a vampire's house. So the vampire lives in this one. Perfect, let's move on. One of these houses belongs to a centaur. Do you have any idea which one? It must be this one. Pay closer attention to the path to the house. There are footprints of horse hooves. Centaurs have an upper body of a human, but a lower body of a horse, which explains the prints. The centaurs must be living here. The next one we need to track is a mummy. Take a closer look at these 2 apartments. Where does the mummy reside? Now, did you notice the bandages all over the room here? It must belong to the mummy, so I bet that's his place. Now it's time to track the Cyclops. Keep your eye out and make your best guess. Did you notice this strange object in this room? It looks like a pair of glasses, but it only has 1 lens. Well, that's because it belongs to a Cyclops. They only have 1 eye. So that must be his place. Okay, we only have 1 last creature to identify, a gnome. Here are 2 apartments. Which one does the gnome live in? Did you notice that the mirror in this apartment hangs a bit too low? That's because gnomes are short. He must be living here. Other creatures that have flooded the town are robots. For Halloween, some people started to dress up like them, too. Look at these three people. Can you find the fake robot? Look at their footprints. The robot on the left has human footprints in the beginning that only later change into tire patterns. He must be the fake robot. Let's train your eyes a bit. Here are Halloween emojis. All of them but one has a pair. Can you find the one that doesn't have a pair? Great job! Here it is. Okay, one more time. Now there are even more emojis. Do you see the unique one? Here it is. Good! Now let's proceed. A month before Halloween, Daphne moved into a new modern house that was built in the early 2000s. It was a great house, but Daphne got it for a very low price because it was believed to be haunted. The girl didn't believe in that, so it didn't bother her one bit. On Halloween night, she returned home after midnight. When she walked into her room, she saw a ghost floating there. The ghost looked at Daphne and said, "You know what? You can't live here. It's my house. I've lived here for 100 years, and you're making me uncomfortable." Daphne said that the ghost was lying. Why? The house was built in the early 2000s, so it's barely 20 years old. The ghost couldn't have lived there for 100 years. That's right, ghosts lie. It is Halloween night, full moon, all the creepy things, but Eslyn went to an abandoned spooky house in the woods alone. As soon as she walked in, the door behind her got shut and locked. She wandered around the house and found 3 doors leading out, but they didn't seem safe. Behind the first door, there was a werewolf. Behind the second door, there was a zombie. Behind the third door, there was a ghost. Which way is safer for her to choose? Eslyn should definitely choose the third door. Ghosts may be spooky, but they can't do her any real harm. Of course, Eslyn wasn't the only one who went to the house that night. Another student, Colton, dressed in the silver armor of a knight, decided to explore the spooky house too. Just like with Eslyn, the door got shut behind him right after he stepped into the house. He found 3 ways out too. Behind the first door, there was a vampire. Behind the second door, there was a huge dragon who hates strangers. Behind the third door, there was a huge cyclops that would crash anyone who walks in. Which way should Colton choose to stay safe? Luckily for him, he is dressed as a knight in silver armor. Vampires are afraid of silver, so the first way is totally safe for Colton. On Halloween night, Kennedy wanted to spend the evening with her boyfriend, but her dad was against her dating anyone. To go around it, she lied that she was going to trick-or-treat with her friends and promised to be home by midnight. She returned at 11:30 p.m. Yet her dad got mad at her and demanded to tell him where she really was. Wow, how did he understand that Kennedy didn't go trick-or-treating? She returned with an empty candy basket. Outside of town, hidden in the woods, there is a house where a group of friends live. A mummy, a mermaid, a ghost, a werewolf, and a witch. Every Halloween, they eat candy. There are 5 creatures, but this year they only have 4 chocolate bars, and they don't know how to split them equally. Maybe you have an idea? They should split each one of the 4 bars into 5 pieces, and then each creature gets a piece from each bar. This way, everyone will eat exactly 4 pieces of chocolate. Now that monsters and humans live next to each other, let's try to identify who is who. I will be showing you photos, and your task is to find a monster in each photo. Here's the first one. Can you find the monster? Look, this guy's skin is green. He's definitely not a human. Here is the next photo for you. Be attentive. Do you see someone who is not a human here? This girl in the swimming pool is a mermaid. Good job. Okay, here's one more. It's quite hard, but I believe in you. Who do you think is not a human here? Look, this woman doesn't cast a shadow. Now this is not normal for a human being, so she must be some other creature. Great job! Here's another one for you. Which one do you bet isn't a human? This person is carrying a wand. She must be a witch. This is probably the hardest one. You have to keep your eyes wide open. A photo of a local cafe. Do you see something suspicious? Look, there's a glass of blood in the air, as if someone's drinking it. It must be the vampire who's drinking it, but the vampire isn't in the photo because they can't be photographed. Technicalities.